welcome. Welcome to the Stand Up to Racism event, Fringe. We've got some serious issues to talk about, challenging the hostile environment, and of course the rise in fascism and racism. My name is Claudia Webbe. I've just been re-elected to the National Executive Committee, and of course, along with 9 others, we're there to ensure that Jeremy has the support he needs so that we can see and return a Labour government with Jeremy Corbyn as our next Prime Minister and with Diane Abbott as our next Home Secretary. This summer has seen, further disturbances of the far right. 6,000 supporters with Tommy Robinson marching through central London. Islamic slogans giving Nazi salutes everywhere. The attack on Bookmarks, the socialist bookshop. Boris Johnson's remark on the burqa. Then Tommy Robinson being released from jail. The events in East Germany. 6,000 neo-Nazis marching with the hard right. Swedish People's Party coming so close in the elections there. The far right are now in government in Italy, Austria, Norway, Finland, and are highly influential in Hungary. Our work, therefore, is huge. The fact that we are here in Britain facing racism in blatant form on our streets, here in the UK and across Europe, never mind in America, where African men and women, children, are being gunned down on our streets by men and women in police uniform. This is what we're facing. I'm delighted, therefore, that we've got an excellent panel to address this issue. And so without further ado, I want to invite our first speaker, Diane Abbott, our Shadow Home Secretary. Diane.
Thank you very much for inviting me to address this important meeting. I'm sorry I will have to leave before the end, but I've got 1 or 2 more meetings to go to this afternoon and this evening. But I wanted to address this because I think these issues are very important. You've heard from Claudia about the alarming rise of the far right across Europe. And even here in Britain, you've got the Football Lads Alliance, you've got the people around Tommy Robinson and the EDL, and we have to be aware that this is a rising issue and an issue that we have to be prepared to challenge. I want to go on and talk about the hostile environment and Windrush, because Windrush wasn't an accident. Windrush wasn't some inefficient official. Windrush was a consequence of Theresa May's hostile environment, and actually hostile environment type policies before Theresa May ever became Home Secretary. As you will have heard, in 2012 and 2014, Theresa May as Home Secretary put through legislation which actually had the formal name of the hostile environment, which meant that teachers and landlords had to act as border guards. Because the point that is sometimes missed about Windrush is that because of the hostile environment, people had to produce passports and paperwork which they would never have had to produce before. People had their nationality challenged when they had no doubt when they came to this country in the 50s and 60s that they were British. But when you constantly talk about immigrants as the other, when you constantly assume migration is a problem, you gradually create a climate where negative narrative and negative legislation becomes acceptable. So we reached a point as a country where people who had lived in this country all their adult life, and I no doubt when they entered the country they were British, found themselves subject to deportation. They would go back to their country of origin for a funeral or something like that and not be allowed back into the country. There was a very famous case about a man who had cancer and then was refused further medical treatment because he didn't have the right paperwork. These were real issues that happened to real people. And it was a generation that came to this country to help to rebuild this country. And it was particularly cruel that they were treated in this way. And it was a consequence of the hostile environment. But I would ask you to look back and look at other policy making about immigration, which was tantamount to the hostile environment. Under a Labour government, we introduced food vouchers. Because the narrative then was that these migrants were coming here because they wanted to get benefits. So we introduced food vouchers. You no longer got benefits as a refugee or asylum seeker. And so people would have to walk, because they didn't have the cash, and not every supermarket took the vouchers, people literally have to walk miles to be able to use the food vouchers and get the food and the supplies they needed. Now, in the end, we had to withdraw them, because it wasn't just a very cruel system, it was an inefficient system, but that was something that might be regarded as a hostile environment measure. Another measure, which although it wasn't described as a hostile environment at the time, was the introduction of the type of immigration detention that we have today. Now, unfortunately, to have been an MP when immigration detention in its current form was introduced under Labour Home Secretary David Bluntly. And when some of us challenged the lack of due process in relation to immigration detention, we were told that due process wasn't an issue because they weren't going to be there for very long. They were not going to be there for more than 28 days. And I have visited Yarmouth this year and read a lot of information about other detention centres. And the people here there not just for 28 days, but for years and more. And some of the people held in Yarmouth with the detention centre were actually Windrush people. I met at least one woman who lived in this country for 40 years, had British children with British passport, but because she didn't have the right paperwork, was detained in Yarmouth. So immigration detention, far from being a short-term process before you actually deport people, became part of the hostile environment. And I spoke to Amber Rudd about this when she was the Home Secretary. And asked her, what are all these people doing in the office? So she said, oh, these women are dangerous. Some of these women are violent. So how can that be? Because even in prisoner states, the actual prisoner state for actual prisoners, only a fraction of those women have been convicted of violent crime. So how can you say that this is why you're keeping people in immigration detention? And I've said, and I will say it again quite clearly, that as Home Secretary, I will close the Yarmouth School, I will close Brook House Detention Centre, and review the entire immigration detention estate. And in relation to the more recent examples of hostile environment, the 2012 and 2014 legislation, this is legislation introduced by Theresa May as Home Secretary. This is legislation that a lot of Labour MPs voted for, but Jeremy and myself and David Langdon and others refused to vote for it. And I said on the floor of the House, if you introduce legislation like this, which is targeted at illegal immigrants, the danger is it will be used against people who just look like immigrants. And so said, so done, and we have the Windrush scandal. So I am committed as Home Secretary to repeal the 2012 and 2014 Act and to make good the system which created the hostile environment. But I wanted to just talk briefly about Labour's immigration policy, which we're working on, and I'll say three things. First of all, our immigration policy will reflect what I think politicians used to call family values. We're not going to have a situation where family members can be deported. We will do away with minimum income requirements to bring in family members. How can it be that you can have family life if you've got a certain amount of money, but not have family life if you're poor? We believe in the family, and our immigration policy will be underpinned by a commitment to the family and a commitment to labour values. The other aspect of immigration policy I referred to, which is to start to unravel the hostile environment, which produced a shameful episode of British citizens being deported, British citizens being detained, and British citizens not being allowed back into the country. But the other issue about our immigration policy is you will sometimes hear people argue that they themselves have nothing against immigrants, but immigrants drive down wages. Yeah, and it cannot be said often enough. Immigrants do not drive down wages. What drives down wages are the actions of employers, and absence of worker protection and the policy of this current government. We really shouldn't give succor to the myth that immigrants drive down wages. The other thing, which I'm constantly asked about by journalists, I can see some in the front row waiting for me to say something inflammatory. and they've got their recording machines to make sure they capture it. I've done like this before at stand-up to most of the meeting. But the other thing about immigration policy is we are going to reject arbitrary numerical targets for immigrants. I've said it on the record, don't write it down, I've never heard it before. But we are not going to have these numerical targets, and the reason is they don't work. The Migrant Advisory Committee has said most recently that they don't work. The Home Affairs Select Committee, which is an all-party committee chaired by Rebecca Cooper, they've said they don't work. And in fact, setting targets which you know you're never going to meet undermines confidence in the system. And a recent permanent secretary of the Home Office has said that these arbitrary targets don't work. Instead, we are going to be talking about the criteria for the type of migration we want to welcome. We are going to talk about criteria, including labour values. Because where we are now is a nonsense position where there are shortages of doctors and nurses all around the country. Yeah. Hospitals go out there and they try and recruit doctors, but these doctors are not allowed to enter the country because of these totally arbitrary numerical targets. So we have to recognise the rise of the far right, and colleagues will speak to that. We have to recognise hostile environment wasn't just a question of post-2014 Act. There were hostile environment type measures before that, and we are going to have an immigration policy and a new conversation about immigration, which I hope will reflect the hopes and the values of many of you in this audience. If I didn't have journalists in front of me writing down everything, I might say a little more, but I can only assure you of my record, of my commitment, and my intent on the issues of immigration. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. We know Labour is in good hands when we have Diane Abbott not only ripping up the immigration policy that we have and have had for decades, but setting a very clear vision ahead about a more family-friendly immigration policy. We know we are in good hands. Our next speaker, Kevin Courtney, General Secretary of the National Education Union. Kevin Courtney. Thank you.
Thank you very much, much. Like Claudia said, I'm the Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union. For those of you who don't know, it's the recent amalgamation of the National Union of Teachers and the Association of Teachers and Lecturers. So my Co-General Secretary, Mary Bousted, also sends greetings to you at this meeting today. By forming the National Education Union, we are the biggest education union in Europe, and we're the 4th biggest union in the TUC. And I'm really pleased to have been invited by Stand Up to Racism to come to this meeting. And I brought along this leaflet that we're using at the moment from my union. We're proud to be a sponsor and a supporter of Stand Up to Racism, and to be a sponsor and supporter of Show Racism, the Red Card, who have a fringe meeting tomorrow. And I do want to talk about both the events on this leaflet. A demonstration on November the 17th, which I think is very important, and an activity that we do in schools and that I think you could do in every workplace, called Wear Red Day on October the 19th. These things, though, come out of the profound fear that Claudia addressed, of a combination of events, and Diana's spoken about them as well, that I think come together and they certainly make me frightened for the society that we live in. I think we have done some very good things in our society and have pushed racism back, but I think you have to be ever vigilant, and I think there are forces that are trying to push racism forward, and I personally am quite scared about where we're at in our society and where we'll get to throughout all the Brexit stuff and other things that I'll come on to. I think there are frightening things afoot. You see them internationally. You see them in Donald Trump's casual anti-Muslim, anti-migrant, anti-Mexican racism. You see them in the advance of the Swedish Democrats and that chilling mobilisation by the far right in Germany and Chemnitz. But you have to see that that's at home as well. The growth of organisations like the Democratic Football Lads Alliance, the growth of these organisations, the scale of the mobilisation that these people are producing, which is bigger than the far right has ever produced in our country before, at this moment in our history, I think is quite worrying. So the UKIP conference, which happened last weekend, they had a debate about whether to allow Tommy Robinson to join their organisation. They chose not to debate it on the floor of conference. They've referred it back to their executive committee. We don't know what the outcome of their executive committee decision will be. So you've got Nigel Farage, the respectable voice of UKIP, who's saying don't admit him. And then you've got Gerald Batten, the current General Secretary or leader, whatever his name is, whatever the title is, his UKIP leader. Thank you. Gerald Batten wanting to go to a radical anti-Islam position. You know, the policies they were talking about there, about Muslim-only prisons. The policies they're talking about there, where there are people telling me that they're going to admit Tommy Robinson into membership and look for a parliamentary seat to stand him in. And I tell you, I think that would be very frightening. Yeah. Tommy Robinson is back in court before the end of this month, I understand. And he's positioning himself as the defender of white girls against grooming by Pakistani gangs of men. It's a disgraceful positioning that he is getting, and he's looking for publicity around that. And I think you have to be scared about it. And the DFLA back on the streets with another big demonstration on the 13th of October. Steve Bannon put in significant money into trying to mobilise a far-right international around these things. I tell you, that's scary. And the scariness is doubled, tripled by the fact that mainstream politicians are so casual in the way they talk about these things now. So Theresa May, our Prime Minister, as Home Secretary, Diane was talking about this. She had the go home bans apparently aimed at illegal migrants. Well, I tell you, children that my members were teaching in schools, they could see those bans, whether they were illegal migrants or legal migrants, and they were frightened by them. It causes fear and division in schools. Theresa May wanted schools to report the nationality status of the children in the schools, turning every school into a mini immigration office. We worked with the Schools Against Borders for Children campaign and have pushed that back. But it's what they wanted to do. And then when you have Boris Johnson in, and you have to think it is calculated. His piece about the burqa, about about saying people that look like pillboxes, talking about people as robbers. It's calculated. He wrote a piece saying he doesn't want to ban it, but he did it. He used that language deliberately to tell people that that's the sort of man he is. And I've got a report from an NEU member at a school funding cuts meeting the next week, where a Muslim woman was attacked by people in the meeting for being a pillbox. So this language is used by a respectable politician. It doesn't stay there. And I think we have pushed back racism in this country. But I'm talking about people who are telling me that for the first time in their lives, or that for the first time in 20, 30 years, they're starting to feel again a deep-seated sort of fear. And just the popularity of anti-Muslim and anti-migrant arguments about the way our world is should make us all feel afraid, and it makes me afraid for children in our schools. So I think that we have to build the biggest possible anti-racist movement we can. Across the summer, Diane and John MacDonald called for a relaunch of the Anti-Nazi League, and I think by that they mean, I don't think I'm reinterpreting that, something big, something broad, something that is going to mobilise the mass of people who want to live in a good society together, who think we should love one another, not be divided. And I tell you that we have beaten these people in the past. Our movement has beaten these people. When we pushed racism back, it was our foremothers and forefathers who defeated the black shirts when they wanted to march and terrorise Jewish people. It was our more recent, some of us might have been involved in demonstrations against the National Front when they wanted to demonise and beat up black people and Pakistani people. And more recently, we've pushed back, broken the British National Party and broken the EDL when they want to attack Muslim people. So we've done it before, and I think we have to realise that these people, they change their target from time to time. They go from Jews to blacks to Pakistanis to Muslims, but it's always the same. They divide, they preach hatred, they tell lies about their target community. The DFLA would now have you believe they're not racist, because Islam isn't a race. Well, Judaism, you can say the same thing. These people are racists. They treat every Muslim person as the same. They want you to hate all of them, and we have to stand firm and say we are not going down that road. We are living in this society together. We want the unity of this society. We want unity of black and white. We want unity of Jews and Muslims and atheists and Christians. We all want to be in this society together. It's the only option for us. So I'm asking you to do something about these events. So if you're in a workplace, I think you can get colleagues to wear red on October the 19th. Yeah. Show Racism the Red Card is an anti-racist charity which works in schools. It's a football, it uses football to reach children. So Shaka Hislop founded this charity after he'd been racially attacked, and he wanted to do something about it. So footballers go into schools, and they employ education workers who go in and challenge children, who go in and talk with children who have racist explanations about the world, who let them put those explanations out, and then who patiently talk through them. And it's very successful. They use this Wear Red Day as a fundraising activity for their educational charity. But I think as well as being a fundraising day, the idea that you can get your workmates to wear red on October the 19th because they are against racism. I tell you, I think we've been pushed back, but we haven't been pushed back so far that there isn't a popular mass resistance to racism in this country, and people will do it in every workplace, and I think we should do that. And then the thing that you would have to come to London for, so this is something you can do in your workplace, but this demonstration on November the 17th, which both these events unanimously endorsed by the TUC 2 weeks ago, which is why the TUC logo, as well as our logo, is on this leaflet. Both these events unanimously endorsed by the TUC. The DFLA are going to have their demonstration on October the 13th. I think we need to see that all people of goodwill, the broadest possible mobilisation. I hope the Archbishop of Canterbury and Baroness Barcy are on this demonstration. But I think the trades unions and the left are crucial to making it happen. We've got the drive and the energy. We have to make a demonstration happen which says to our Muslim brothers and sisters, our migrant brothers and sisters, we're all in this together. We're not letting those fascists take over our country. We are not going to let them spread fear and hatred. We're together, we love one another, and we are standing together. Thank you very much.
also reminding us of how fascism has entered the political elite, the mainstream. When you think about people like Steve Bannon, very important that you mention him, you know, Trump's former chief strategist, who is building very clearly a European-wide hard right movement, and then what is Boris Johnson doing meeting him? This is a very serious situation that we're in serious times. I've got a message from Talal Ahmed, who could not be with us here today. Talal, of course, is from the Muslim Council of Britain and co-chair of Stand Up to Racism. But he sends a message of solidarity. And it might be worth reading just one or two points he makes. It's a very long message of solidarity, but I'm not suggesting that I'm going to read the entire message. But he makes it clear that we are at a critical time in Europe and worldwide. That at home in the UK, it is common ground that racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism and homophobia is on the rise. That we now have a party, UKIP, that openly advocates Islamophobic policies. Another party, the Tories, surprise, surprise, where some of their MEPs thought it right to support Viktor Orban. He believes, however, we are uniquely positioned to challenge the narrative of hate and drive out those who seek to scapegoat our vulnerable communities. And he recognises the inspiration and courage we now have, a more powerful set of allies and hugely significant gains, that if we unite, we can defeat those that seek to oppose us in this way. He says it's important that we seek to ensure fairness and equality between people and communities, challenge bigotry and racism, seek off hatred and division. He says we want this to be so because it's the right thing to do, that a fairer, equal and hate-free society ensures a brighter future for us all. So just wanted to read that message from Talal Ahmed, who sends solidarity that he couldn't be here today. Our next speaker is Miriam Yagard from the Jewish Socialist Group. Miriam, thank you.
Can you all hear me with this? No? Is that better? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, really, thank you for inviting us to come and address this meeting. It's really nice that you've come. I'm assuming that I'm talking mostly to the converted. We're all here because we all agree we need to do something about racism and fascism. So I'm going to talk about how we think we might do that together. Jewish Socialist Group, which produces Jewish Socialist magazine, on sale £2 here at the end. We've been around since the early 80s and involved in many anti-racist and anti-fascist struggles throughout the time. I personally grew up in Stepney and Hackney. My family were refugees here in the 30s and the 40s, both before and after the Holocaust. And you know, poor working class Jewish families, and all our bosses were capitalist Jewish people. We were the poor Jewish people, they were the capitalist Jewish people. So we know about capitalists firsthand from our experience. Now, over the last 2 years, we've had attacks about what Jews think of the Labour Party. And one of the things I think is important to understand is that hundreds of us have joined the Labour Party in the last 2 years, including myself. And you know, Stepney and Hackney are rock solid Labour places. I never joined it, and lots of Jews didn't. I am now, and we are now. So it's really important not to believe the smears and the lies about all Jews are alienated from Labour, because we're flocking to Labour right now. My family is signing up, we never did. And my family are very wide-ranging. You know, each Jewish family reflects the wide variety of values and bank accounts of every other Jewish community around the world, and lots of us are joining Labour. So I just want to put that one to rest a little bit. Jewish Socialist Group says Jews should always be with the oppressed, not with the oppressor. And that is a very, if you want to know how we're different to other Jewish voices we're hearing, that's the bottom line one. That we will always be with the oppressed, not with the oppressor. And that's why we're forging links with other communities who experience racism, particularly at the moment. So there's a lot of So for us, we think a strong society is